Hi, everybody. I'm Mike Kai, your host, and welcome to the Leader Lift podcast.
Leader Lift with mikekai, taking your leadership from one peak to the next.
Welcome to the Leader Lift podcast, where we're going to take your leadership from one peak to the next. I'm so glad that you're joining us today. I want you to lean in, take notes, tell us what impacted you the most in the comments, and have a listen, but more than anything, just allow your heart to be open to what is going to be said today through these podcasts. So, Sam, welcome back to Hawaii. We love you. We appreciate you.
It's an honor to be here. I love you all with all my heart.
You know, there's so many different things that we could say that you do. You're an author, pastor, speaker, businessman. What would you say that you do? Not just your titles, but what do you do? What do you love doing about what you do?
Oh, I love serving the kingdom of our Lord. And the best way I know to do that is to serve pastors. So I come alongside pastors, and whatever their vision is, I at that time make it my vision and help them across the line. So anything I can do to serve the vision that pastors have.
That's amazing. So how many churches would you say that you work with every year?
Directly, probably 200 or so.
Wow.
A year. Some in person, some on the phone, indirectly through conferences and roundtables and consultations. Maybe 8,000, something like that.
And I bet we are your favorite church to work with.
Nobody is more favorite. You're the favoritist of the favoritist.
Yes, I know.
Yeah, that's why she's on this podcast. Yeah, it's awesome. Well, we really appreciate you. You've been working with us for about 6 years, and I hope you've seen a great progress.
Oh, it's amazing, and you all are. I mean, you are amazing leaders to begin with, and so just coming alongside race horses and help them a little bit more. I mean, that's easy.
So you've seen a journey of ours from where we were, where we are today, and I wouldn't say it's been a gigantic leap. I would say that it's been incremental leaps to the place where we are today. So what I want to ask you is all these churches that you've worked with throughout the years that you've been doing this, and just this past year, what are the great things that you love seeing that are common in most growing churches at this moment?
At this moment, the common things are children's ministries. Pastors are also looking forward to raising more leaders because they are realizing that their legacy will be not what they leave behind, but who they leave behind.
Yeah.
So on the personal level, pastors are investing more and more into high potential leaders in their churches. But I think the gateway to a growing church right now in this season is children.
Yeah.
And, I've found that people put up with mediocre preaching and mediocre worship as long as the children are being blessed and they wake up saying, let's go to church. That is an important thing for pastors to understand. So for example, at one time it was youth ministry.
Yeah.
Now it's children.
Yeah. And that's why we made a big investment here at this campus right here.
Yeah.
With that big children's structure. I don't know if you saw it, but when you walk out these doors to the right-hand side, and between every single service, there's so many kids who are playing on that apparatus and having a great time. I think it's absolutely worth it.
Totally.
Putting your money into kids, great kids leaders. So what have you noticed about churches that are struggling? What is the common denominator there?
The common denominator happens to be churches that have lost their flow and trying to find another flow. Especially in the age of social media, churches are losing who they are.
Yeah.
And they're trying to be like everybody else. And somehow in there they lose their soul. They lose their mission. They lose their DNA. They are not who they were. They become somebody else. And emulating best practices is one thing, but trying to be like somebody else when God has given you your own armor is another thing altogether. I think that's the big challenge. As people are on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter, and I mean they're watching all this stuff from everywhere else, and all of a sudden it's like, hey, can we do this? Hey, let's do this. Nothing wrong with that. But don't lose yourself in the process.
Yeah, absolutely.
I still remember when we started Inspire Church, what it was previously called Hope Chapel West Oahu, because we came out of a Hope Chapel family. And I think in the beginning stages, of course, you're going to emulate exactly what you've been taught. And then eventually you start forming your own personality, your own style. And I think for a season, I think we come to a place of we grab based on what we see as successes. And then we figure out eventually a couple years later, we become who we are today. And I think in the beginning, people were kind of not mocking us, but I remember they were
they were
saying
pretty critical
of us because we were changing
Yeah.
and we were not like how the parent church that we came out of. But I think it's like any kid. You come from the same family, but eventually you find your own path and you become who you are.
Yeah.
Every church has its own soul.
Yes.
And so don't defer me theologically here. So, the soul, spirit, body, mind.
Yeah.
But every church has its own soul. Every church has to answer not what do you do, but who are you?
Yeah.
Because I believe that God has a unique stamp on the
Yes.
life of every church, a
Yes.
unique mission, a unique assignment on the life of every church. And but it is so easy to lose that.
Yes.
Because other things seem to be more attractive.
Yes.
And attractional is not really what you'll be rewarded on. What you'll be rewarded on is, what did you do with what I gave you?
That's
I
true.
gave you this, and what do you do with that?
Yeah. So true. In the early days, we came out knowing this is who we are. We're not deviating from the plan. It worked for McDonald's. It worked for 7-Eleven. It's going to work for us. So we came out of the Hope Chapel family, which basically came from Foursquare, and we're very, very grateful for our roots.
Sure.
I always thought that I'm going to do it exactly like Pastor Ralph did it, and we did. And then you get exposed to different parts of the body of Christ in the kingdom, and you just realize there's more than one way to do it. And we started going to conferences, and then we started to see things. This is before Instagram, before Twitter. This is before all of that, where you actually literally had to fly there to go see it for yourself. You couldn't get it on YouTube. You couldn't download it, whatever it was. You had to go buy the DVD. Or somebody had to bring the DVD to you. So you spent thousands of dollars just to go see how somebody is doing church successfully and doing it great. And we were highly impacted by that first time when I went to Hillsong Conference in Sydney. And we came back and we were doing a little bit of the Hope Chapel. We were doing a little bit of a lot more what Hillsong was doing, and a little bit of New Hope, and a little bit of who we were. And then instead of calling us Hope Chapel, they started calling us Hybrid Chapel. You guys are the hybrid church. You're not a real Hope Chapel. And at first, I took that personally.
Yeah.
Well, what do you mean? I'm my spiritual father's son. I'm the most like him. No, you guys are not a Hope Chapel. You're not a real Hope Chapel. And finally, I just started fighting it. I said, you know what? Maybe we're not anymore. Maybe this is who we are. We're hybrid. Call us whatever you want. You can call us a hybrid. But now I look, what's the biggest class of cars right now? It's probably hybrids. Hybrid vehicles are the most wanted vehicle. And so it becomes its own class eventually. And maybe that's the big thing, right? Maybe you stick with it long enough doing what you're doing it successfully, that you become in your own class. You become your own brand, for lack of a better word.
Absolutely. And I think Lisa said it best. You grow into it. You find yourself.
Yep.
Absolutely.
And then it gets confirmed by the kind of people that God brings to your team.
Yes.
And he gives you this vision, and you're wondering how I'm going to do that. And next thing, somebody comes along with that expertise, and next thing you know, there's money for that and facilities for that. But you've got to know that. I think every pastor has to ask themselves one simple question: what is my life's assignment?
That's true.
And that's what you got to live out, your life assignment. For some, it is discipleship. For some, it is
Worship.
evangelism.
Yep.
For some, it is worship. For some, it is youth. I mean, whatever your life. For some, it is community. For some, it is business and entrepreneurship.
Yeah.
I know of pastors that are called to serve the business community, and they're doing it really, really well. And so the churches are percolating with entrepreneurs and like a business incubator, so as to speak. But bottom line is, who are you?
That's a good question.
And what has God called you to do? Now, I can go and get tools and ideas and programs from other places. There's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
But it's got to be the real authentic
deal.
you. Yeah.
And
so
people can tell. People
Absolutely.
can tell, yes.
I want to ask you a question. What do you feel leaders are missing today in order to lead more effectively in the world that we live in?
That's a really, really good question and difficult to answer, but I'll just give you my opinion. I
Okay.
think leaders are less curious today because they can Google it. And also, leaders are less self aware today. Self aware of who they are, who they were, who they are, who they're becoming, their ages and stages, knowing that this is who I was, but that's not who I am, and being comfortable with that. But on the curiosity side of things, asking more questions, not every answer, not every problem has to be fixed. Wondering why is that and how is that, and how can we gain more understanding of that rather than Google, go to the first two answers there and figure out something from there. Just, I think we rush towards change and we don't like to churn. Churning is just kind of living in the moment and saying, let me think about this. Let me pray about this. Let me talk to a few people about this. Let me get more around it. So we're in a hurry of, I might miss the train if I didn't do that.
Yeah.
Rather than, it's all right.
So, question about the churning part. Why do you think we have trouble churning?
Because we are in a hurry. Looks like everybody's in a hurry to get somewhere. If I don't do, somebody else might do it. If I don't do this now, this moment will pass. This window's about to close. And I don't see God in a hurry.
Yeah.
Look at his promise. I'm coming back soon. And the soon is a long time. His promise to Abraham, it took 25 years. His formation of Moses into a leader took, some say 40, some say 80, depends on which way you want to chunk out his life of 120, 40, 40, 40. And we just seem to be in a rush to get from one place to the other rather than just saying, God, you're at work. I'm on your timetable. You open the door. I'm ready to walk through. I'm prepared. Rather than, I got to make this happen. And the more you make it happen, the more he says, okay, carry on.
Yeah. Really good.
It's almost like a fashion trend.
Yeah.
You're wearing skinny jeans? Okay, we were all wearing skinny jeans. Now we're not wearing skinny jeans. We're going to wear these, whatever type of jeans there is now.
Let me ask you, what are you seeing as the strengths and challenges of the next generation of leaders, such as the millennials and Generation Z?
I think the next generation wants to change the world. We wanted to change our neighborhoods. We wanted to change our communities. They actually want to change the world. So their vision is bigger than our vision. Now we get challenged because we look at them and say, but you're just 22. And what are you talking about? And yet you look at our world, it is those young ones who are really taking the world. And I think we have a lot to learn from them, that they don't have barriers, they don't preempt ideas, they don't sidetrack ideas, they find friends to do it with, they don't let lack of resources hold them back. If it's not going to happen right now, we're going to still do it. They're willing to make mistakes and get beyond that. Failure does not define them, it's not fatal for them. They also know that we can do more together than we can do by ourselves.
Really?
So they do a lot of life together. They hang out together. They don't have to have everything ironed out. Me and my wife, old people that we are, if we're meeting with another couple, we want to know, 3 weeks ahead of time when we're going to do dinner, where we're going to meet them up, what time we're going to meet up. I ask my kids, 37, 39, what are you doing? Oh, I'm going to have we're going to go out with some friends. What are you going to do? I don't know. Where are you going to meet up? I don't know. We'll figure it out. You going for dinner? I think so, but we'll know. And they're okay with they're okay with the ambiguity.
Yep.
And I think that is their strength, to be able to flow with stuff,
Yeah.
whereas we had to have everything defined and everything
True.
in place.
Yeah.
But I'm very excited about the Z generation especially. The Z gens
Who are they?
They are the ones who graduated from high school in 2017, 2018.
Wow.
Yeah. So they are your 19, 20-year-olds right now. More mature than we were when we were 18, 19, 20. They are not frivolous with their money. They have life goals. They are postponing the things from right now into the future. They're not for instant gratification. They're studious. They're very resourceful. They can find answers. They are not as dependent on their parents as we were. They find independence faster. They are education minded.
Yeah.
They want stability in life. They will marry later in life. They are career oriented. They're not necessarily looking for a job. They're looking to start businesses. So I think more business entrepreneurs are in the Z generation than ever before.
Wow.
Because they just think differently. They are more exposed. They have never used a landline. They were born with
It's
a
called a
phone.
telephone.
Yeah, they were born with a phone in their hand.
Yeah.
They do all their business on phone. We use our phones. They enjoy their phones.
True.
So we are afraid we're going to do something wrong. They are always, that's their life. They do all their business
Everything.
everything is on the phone. So it's a different way of thinking. It's like, I got this.
Yes.
You don't have to make it for me.
It's almost like they are more influential than probably than when we were,
Absolutely they are.
because of the amount of followers, when you think about it, that they are surrounded with, that they can get a word out so much quicker than a marketing ad.
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally. And they have friends who are for them.
Yeah.
It's really neat to see how collaborative they are and how less competitive they are. It's not like if I give you my idea, you're going to do something with it. It's like, here's my idea. What do you think?
Yeah.
Uh,
Collaboration.
Yeah, it's their barriers are lower. They are not competing with each other, and they help each other. So GoFundMe, for example, that's just out to do their fundraising walks, runs. It is just hey, my friend is having this. I'm going to
And
go
they
and
all
help
just
her.
come together.
Yeah.
And they don't have to form committees and task forces and teams. They just kind of do it. And
Yeah.
so the informality is just so strong. The relationships are strong. They're going somewhere in life together.
Yeah.
Because I even think in our school system, only because our youngest one just switched school this year, and they have a different learning pathways for kids now. It's not just you just sit on your desk and you just listen to a teacher teach you for an hour. There's a place where kids who just want to collaborate versus sitting in a classroom the whole time. So I'm looking at that thinking, what a great way of this generation in how they're learning. I wish we had that. Ours was just black and white. 5 + 5 is 10.
That's right.
But this generation had to write out 5 + 5. Well, why is it 10? And in our head, no one told us why 5 + 5 was 10. So I think this generation, they like to talk it out. They like to talk things through. They want to come up with an idea together, because it just, there's not a lot of silo type of people this generation. They really love being with each other.
They like community.
They like
I have a
community.
19-year-old granddaughter. She likes studying. She's in nursing school. She likes studying at Starbucks, start studying at Dunkin' Donuts,
Loud places.
loves starting, where there's people, there's community. We studied at the kitchen table.
Yes. Yes.
In a private environment. there was
Libraries. We had libraries.
We had libraries.
Yes.
Yes. Now the library's on their phone.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yes.
Well, I got another question then, because it leads to part of this generational leadership, but it also is talks about business people and people in the marketplace. As you work with leaders both in church and in the marketplace, entrepreneurs, everything, big CEOs, what are the highest or the biggest lessons each sector can learn from one another?
I think the business community has a lot to teach the church on productivity, on accountability, on assuring that stewardship takes place. And the business community has a lot to learn from the church as to how we need to be other-minded, community-minded. How do we reach people? How do we meet them at their point of need? The good thing is I'm seeing more and more of that. I'm seeing more churches who are doing collaborative work with businesses, and businesses that finding strength in churches.
Yep.
There are businesses that want to give back to people. and the churches are giving them the avenue to do that because that's a church's core competency is to reach the community. On the other hand, businesses are also finding out that they can leverage the dollars more if they serve the church in helping that happen. And so there's a I'm seeing more collaborations between businesses and communities. And one of the reasons why is I think more and more pastors are seeing the business community not as a competitor, but a demographic to pastor.
Yeah.
So all the
Yeah.
12 disciples of Jesus were business people. So when he was launching a global entity known as the church,
Yeah.
and he was launching a company that was going to go global. The CEO of our company knew that there'll be one of his stores, at least one, and in many cases, many more in every village, city, burg,
Yeah.
in every continent, every country. He could envision. He said, you're going to be in Jerusalem. Your headquarters is going to be in Jerusalem, but pretty soon you're going to go outside that
Yeah.
into Samaria, and then Judea, Samaria, into the uttermost parts of the world. And so who should I have as my first franchisees? Who will carry this business model
Yeah.
further?
Yeah.
And it was not church folk. He didn't choose anybody from the Sanhedrin or the rabbinical school or the school of the prophets.
Yeah.
He went to the business community.
Yep.
And they made changes. They made read the book of Acts. If you read the book of Acts from that point of view, you see them moving headquarters from Jerusalem to Antioch because they could not go global from
So
Jerusalem.
true.
That was the
Yeah.
ecclesiastical center of the world, but the economic center of the world was Antioch, the crossroads of the world. So yeah, we can go do that. The decision they made in Acts chapter 6 as to how they're going to solve the food distribution problem
Yeah.
was a very business-oriented thing, especially if you unpack the first few verses. Acts chapter 15, where the question of circumcision is coming up, and they looked at it from the global perspective and said, hey, listen, if we just only people who are circumcised can become believers, then it will just become Christianity will become a sect of Judaism. But if we're going to go global, we cannot have that over there.
Yeah.
So you start seeing the decisions that they made and how
Yeah.
they made them. and so, yeah, God has always used the business community. In the Old Testament, see Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, all these guys are landowners, business owners, real estate moguls.
Yes, exactly.
As far as the eye could see, they owned it all,
Yeah.
kind of a thing.
It's like Montana ranchers.
That's something like that. So I just think church and business have a real collaborative opportunity in this window that God has given to us. And the more pastors value the business community, the greater their influence can be.
I would have to agree with that 100%. So you think about this for a moment. A lot of pastors, but not all of them. A lot of them are entrepreneurial. When they're starting a new campus, it's like starting a new business.
Totally.
Of course, definitely different, but you're starting a new business. You're using a proven model. You're trying something new or something of the same in a different market, in a different area or region or town or city. And I love that. And for me personally, I've always had this entrepreneurial bent. Part of me wishes I was a businessman, but the other part of me knows that I'm a pastor. But then there are people who are in business that can pastor other people, so to speak. They have that marketplace mentality that I'm called to this. This is what I'm called to. Not what you're doing is a higher calling, Mike, but I'm called to business. You're called to the church. We're going to build a kingdom together. And I think there's a marrying of what they call the old terms, but the kings and the priests come together. I was reading in First Chronicles. I think it was First Chronicles. No, I was reading in Zechariah. And in the book of Zechariah, it talks about, oh gosh, I wish I got this memorized, but his name was Jeshua. And Jeshua was the son of a high priest. And the Lord said to Zechariah, say to Jeshua that these 3 men are coming back with gold and silver from Babylon because you're going to rebuild the temple. But when you get that gold and silver, I want you to take that gold and silver. I want you to make a crown. And I want you to crown the son of the priest with that crown. If you're a son of a priest, that means you're going to be a priest. You're in the Levitical priesthood. It's going to be passed on to your generation. But he says, I want you to put the crown on the priest. And then it says this later on, that he will rule from Jerusalem, but also he will be king and priest, and there will be harmony between both his roles.
Wow.
When I read that, I went, this is powerful. I'd never seen this before.
That's great.
And I believe that there are people who have harmony between both roles. In the church, in business, harmony between both roles. Then I also believe we're bringing harmony between both roles. the kings and the priests, the marketplace people, and those who are pastors bring harmony between both roles.
You know, the issues are the same in for-profit and non-profit. All right.
Just the language is different.
Yeah. Both of you, I'm talking about profit and non-profit, have to deal with facilities, brick and mortar, staffing,
Yep.
money, stakeholders, stockholders, however you want to call that.
A board.
Boards. You got to deal with expansion. You got to deal with legal. You got to deal with insurance. You got to deal with all the community laws. You have to deal with taxes. Issues are the same. How you measure the bottom line is the only difference. So in business, you measure the bottom line by profit and loss. In a church, you measure the bottom line by emptier hell, fuller heaven. Salvations, discipleship, right?
Exactly.
So our bottom line measurements are different. But apart from that, so when people come to this church, for example, from the business community, they got to know that you are a king and a priest, that you are both a pastor and a business person. So this church and the business, like Jesus said, I must be about my Father's business. So when a business person is sitting in your church or watching you online, they've got to realize that you are dealing with everything they are dealing with. Everything that they're
True.
dealing with,
True.
you're dealing with.
Yeah.
And their growth strategies, media. I mean, on and on it goes. So the whole notion that you do something, yours is a different world, mine is a different world, is not true.
That's what prompted me to really consider creating something that was for business people. Lisa and I have the privilege that people from all over the state or all over the island love us and love our church, but don't go to our church. And we're fine. Not everybody has to come to our church. There's so many different churches, so many great pastors here. We totally understand. And then there are times when there are people in business or different parts of the private sector that want some of our time and want to have coffee. And eventually some of them ask us, can you mentor me? And we've got to make that decision because we got people in our church and people who are from another church. We have to weigh that. It's not an easy decision. But I started to notice that more business people were coming to me. And they don't go to our church, which is fine because I already know how to lead my business people. I'm learning. I'm getting better at it. Then I just felt after we were talking and praying about it, discussing it, that maybe we needed to start a network of people who come together from different churches, but not call it Inspire, call it something different so it doesn't threaten anybody. And they feel like they can be a part of this. And it's kingdom. It's not local church, it's kingdom. And so what we created is this thing called the Influencers Network, is where people from the 6 different spheres of influence in the world or in society, business, marketplace, politics, and public service, government, arts and entertainment and sports, and maybe I might be missing a couple, but we get the leaders of that or people who have influence in that and put this together and taking an older wineskin or older model and let's update the model. Let's see what happens when we add a new model, a new style, a new way of doing it, a different language. Although we are Christian, we're not going to use all Christianese the whole time. When we have these events, let's see what we can do. And let's influence this state. Let's influence Honolulu. Let's influence Hawaii with this instead of trying to attack it from the political angle, which we're not going to win. We're not going to win. We got to influence and infiltrate every sphere of society with Christianity, with people who love Christ. And let's see how we can influence arts and entertainment and sports, influence the government, influence public service, influence education by people who are, moving in that direction and growing. So we're really excited about that, and influencers, bringing the kings and the priests together.
That'll be so amazing. And I'm hoping that people who, thanks for sharing that. I'm hoping that people who are listening or watching this will be curious as to what you're doing. And if some are already doing it, that they'll reach out and say, hey, this is what we are doing. This might be of help to you. If they have resources in that area, thinking in that area. Like you said, you don't want to reinvent the wheel here. But so I think a lot of give and take exchange can take place simply by people knowing. And you're calling it the Influencers Network, huh?
Yeah.
That's so good because you're reaching every sphere of society that touches our lives. For example, education. The field of education is totally shifting. And educators hold so much influence in the lives of not just people who are in school, but they write books and they travel, they speak.
Yeah.
Uh, and I'm just so glad that you are doing that, and you and Pastor Lisa are going to be making a huge difference through Influencers Network.
I can see something powerful coming out of it. What I'm seeing is other pastors of churches having their people be a part of it, getting excited about it, and actually getting behind their pastor's vision. Because if it wasn't for some of the things that we do, the initiatives that we do, we wouldn't be where we are today in terms of building and real estate and the opportunities that have come our way. A lot of it has to do with the way that God has positioned us because of relationships, but also because of the people of relationships we've cultivated with people who have the gift of generosity.
So if I were the pastor somewhere listening to this, how could I get more information about that?
Go to our website, definitely, at inspirechurch.tv. It's inspire.church, no longer inspirechurch.tv. But we have yet to create that influencer's web address yet, but we're going to do that. Our friend Ashley Evans, Influencers Church, not the same thing, although we have a lot of respect and honor for him. This is a network of people who are in the body of Christ. So what I'm thinking is when we get that information rolled out, I can see churches being I can just see pastors being like, I never thought this could happen to our church. I never thought that we could see business people rise up. And then now he can, maybe if he's never done it before, she's never done it before, now they'll learn how to shepherd and lead and not be intimidated by people who are in that field or that sphere of society. So in order to get more information, you can call us at 808-677-8844. That'd probably be the best way. 808-677-8844. Or
just DM you.
What?
DM you on
DM
Instagram.
me? Follow me on Instagram. I'm like 1,000 followers short of hitting 10,000. So follow me on Instagram at mikekai.
It's all
And
about
push me over
popularity.
10,000. And then direct message me. And then I'll get you the information. And so what I love about this is I've got so many friends in Hawaii who are pastors. And we've got equity in trust all these years. My goal is not to take anybody from anybody else's church. I want to empower the local church and everybody else's church and bring the kingdom together and infiltrate and influence the spheres of society.
Absolutely. And I know any healthy pastor is not threatened by that. And any healthy pastor sees you as a resource to come alongside them and help them develop their vision where they're going in that whole community.
Yeah. But any questions for Dr. Chan before we let him go?
I think because you've been all over the world. You've coached, you've spoken to so many pastors who are going through transitions, new pastors starting a new church. You're in your 60s and you have a lot of wisdom. You've also been a pastor of a church as well. What is that one thing that you've seen that is so different from the days of your pastoring to the churches that we now pastor?
It's a great question.
Oh boy. So complicated. So many moving parts. For example, in most churches, because of the media and all that goes with it, you got to submit your sermon a week ahead of time. At least 5 days ahead of time, so they can work up the graphics, so that the worship team can come up with songs that go along with that, so that the atmosphere is set, that's congruent. I grew up in a church where if you wanted to, you could change your message that morning.
Yeah.
You know, and
Really?
you know, so it's just like, hey, I had to prepare, but God's leading me another way. And so flexibility is gone. How church services run, they're shorter, more bam, 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 bam. Segues have become more important than really the content itself. The demographics that are coming to our church on any given Sunday, you will see, weekend really, if you go Saturday and Sunday, you're going to see 4 to 5 generations that you're serving in the church. Church is much more proliferated. From the CEO to the homeless. Ministry is much more complicated, in which there are legal issues now, what you say, how you say it. And then what you say in the room is not contained to the rooms. So wherever I speak now, I have to remind myself that probably the larger audience is not in this room. It is
Wow.
out there where they will not be able to catch capture the spirit of the
Yes.
house or the context of the joke. You know, it is gonna
So
be
different.
It's gonna be different. It's gonna be misunderstood. So I think the difference there is our skill set has to change. The skill set needed by a pastor today, people who study all this, I'm not that knowledgeable on it, but people who study that say that a pastor needs at least 57 different skill sets, all the way
Wow.
from coaching, consulting, counseling, mentoring, discipling, evangelizing, community outreach, administration, finances, media.
Keep
I mean,
going.
you just keep, you know,
Yeah.
I mean, you just keep going on.
Lawnmower. You gotta
Yeah.
know how to keep the plants alive.
That's right. So I think that is,
Yeah.
pastors used to have a life.
Yeah.
It's hard to have a life with so much coming at you. Used to be anybody who wanted to call you, there were office hours and there was a phone sitting on the desk.
Yes.
And now you're available.
24/7.
When he says DM me, well,
Do we
God
really want
knows,
that?
Yeah, yeah. God knows how many thousands of people are watching, and
That's why he has an assistant.
yeah,
No joke.
gets 150 DMs. I mean, what are you going to do with? It's not just one DM; it's back and forth DM now.
Yeah,
And all of a sudden, just in that one mere announcement,
Gabe,
he
what you just did.
he has opened the door to. I'm not saying
Yeah.
that's a bad thing.
No.
I'm saying that's different from the time that
Yeah.
I was pastoring. So yeah,
More
so,
accessible.
Oh, no.
everything has changed.
Not only
Yeah.
has church changed, not only has the pastor's role changed, but the people have changed.
Oh yeah. They're us.
They're the
us.
same. They're
No,
the
they're
same.
not the same. I love you guys, but you guys are not the same.
Yeah.
They can Yelp you, Yelp your church. It's
Oh.
crazy. It's
Yeah,
crazy.
yeah,
Well, I think they have more avenues to add their 2 cents to anything.
To
that we do.
anything, any opinion.
Yeah.
To this
And
day.
but the challenge there is they can say anything they want to, but you can't.
No, you can't.
Yeah.
No.
That's
And
the
so
hard
it's a
part.
pretty one-sided
Mm-hmm.
communication. The best thing to do is to just leave it alone, let the fire burn itself out. But yeah, you can't go public with your family issues, you know. But that's what happens in the world that we are in. Very little is private, and pictures on Instagram. This is what I'm eating. I mean, really.
I know.
You know, this is where I'm at, and this is what I'm going to do, and you know, people's lives are just like open books.
Totally.
So the boundaries are blurred, if there are any boundaries at all.
Yeah.
And you know, you read some people stuff saying, "Why do you know?" And
Will you probably do me a favor? You ever see me post anything that's like, Mike, what are you thinking?
I'll
Would
tell you,
please-"
honey. I'll tell you,
You might be
honey.
too late.
Yeah.
If you see it, if you see anything, Dr. Chan,
Yeah.
would you please go, Mike? What are you thinking?
let me tell you, you got to pass the Lisa filter. Yeah, but we are living in a totally different age and times, and I'm not saying that's bad. I'm simply saying pastoring is millions time more difficult than when I was pastoring. I have a huge respect and honor for pastors today, and you all make it look easy, but there are so many things that you have to know about to deal with. I mean, the amount of money pastors have to deal with now, you know, in churches, because churches are larger. I mean, that just boggles my mind. We didn't take in that much in 10 years, what most churches do in a month of Sundays. You know,
Wow.
so mortgages and buildings and
Lights.
there's more money hanging from the ceilings.
Yes. The light bulb.
Now, you know, you got smoke machines and you got lights and you got sound, you got filters.
Incredible
I mean,
technology.
it's crazy.
It
You know,
is.
not only do we have to have a screen, we got to have a digital screen. You know, so
What?
and so
a digital screen? We don't have a digital screen yet, honey. We need a digital screen.
yeah, there you go.
Boy. Oh boy.
I got to be able to point at it and move stuff around
There
and
you
like
go.
Chris Hodges and be able to do that.
That all
That'd
of
be
that.
awesome.
Have a hologram.
Yeah. Well, we definitely are grateful for what God called us to do.
Yes.
And the
You're doing it well.
opportunities.
You're doing it very well.
We're trying our best, but thank you.
No, very proud of you. You know, you are doing it amazingly well. And what really encouraged me about the two of you is your heart of generosity. You want to share it with others. Like even what you talked about, Influencers Network. It's not about Pastor Mike and Lisa Kai. It's not about Inspire. It's about, like you said, the kingdom. It's just I have this idea. I have this vision. Let's do it together. So your heart of just giving it away. Your heart of generosity is really encouraging to me, and I think it's refreshing to everybody who is listening to us.
Well,
Thank you.
God is generous to us, always is generous to us. We just want to be generous back with everybody else. Thank you so much, Dr. Chan. It's always awesome to have you. We appreciate you.
We
Honored to be
love
here.
you and Brenda, and we
love-
just are so appreciative
Thank you.
that we have mentors, coaches, pastors that have really helped us walk along the journey that we're in. And that's why we are who we are, because of the people that we've allowed into our circle. So
Thank you so
thank
much.
you.
Oh, I'm honored. Totally honored.
Yeah. Thank you. Hey everybody, thanks for listening to the Leader Lift podcast. If you were impacted by today's message, let us know. Email us at info@inspire.church or tell us in the comments. You can check out mikekai.tv for more leadership resources through my books, Plateaus, or the Pound for Pound Principle. And don't forget to subscribe and rate us on the podcast. You can also find this podcast on all major podcast platforms. Subscribe to us there also, and you can listen again on your way to work. You can also find this podcast on YouTube. Search for Inspire Church TV and click on the Leader Lift playlist, and you can watch us on your lunch break again. Don't forget to subscribe so you get all the latest info. God bless.